England is a foreign country. They speak English there, so English is a foreign language. When my teacher asked me what language I thought I spoke, it seemed like a nonsensical question. I didn't speak any language. I just talked like normal people. This is all true. I believe much of the time we all have a similar attitude about language. We just talk like normal people and don't worry about it. However, when we are forced to stop and think about it, most of us recognize that our use of language can reveal a lot about us, especially our unexamined attitudes and assumptions. I want to look at some of the ways we use language to describe ourselves and refer to ourselves. I hope this will provide some insight into who or what we are identifying with when we use the pronoun I. For some of us, this has spiritual significance. We can describe ourselves by saying things like, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm skinny, I'm fat, I have brown hair, I have short fingers. We can even quantify the details. I weigh 140 pounds. I'm 5 feet 9 inches tall. We also describe temporary conditions. I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I have a headache. But who or what is the I that has these physical characteristics? Are we identifying with our bodies when we say things like this? We casually say, my hand, my leg, my head, as if these are parts of whatever it is we identify with. But we can also say, my body. We couldn't say that if the body was the source of our identity. There has to be some other I or me that claims the body as its own. Maybe the body is a component of some larger identity. Or maybe saying my body is like saying my car, just a possession that we own and use and travel around in. We can ask similar questions about mental characteristics and activity. We may describe ourselves by saying, I'm intelligent, or we can refer to temporary conditions. I'm worried, I'm confused. But what is intelligent? What is worried or confused? What is the mind anyway? Some say the mind is what the brain does, but this is too materialistic for me. Better to say that the brain is what the mind uses. If the brain were a computer, the mind would be sitting at the keyboard. Still, this brings us no closer to determining what it is we are referring to as the mind. We tend to identify with our mental processes. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Wendell Berry got closer to the truth when he said, I think, therefore I think I am. What is the I that thinks? We talk about my mind just as easily as my body. My mind is very active today. Often it seems to function independently of the I that wants to control it. I want to go to sleep, but my mind won't quiet down. I don't want to keep thinking about that scary movie, but I can't get it out of my mind. Obviously, the mind cannot be the true source of our identity, or we would be unable to refer to it that way. There has to be an I that is not the mind. As with the body, maybe the mind is a component of something more complex, or maybe it's just another possession. Perhaps the soul is the source of our true identity. It is, after all, supposed to be immortal. That should give it a much better claim than either the body or the mind. But immediately we run into problems. First, many people don't believe the soul even exists, so they obviously don't identify with it. And this doesn't seem to cause them any difficulty. Second, those who do believe in its existence nearly always speak of having a soul and refer to my soul the same way they talk about my body. We don't say, I am a soul, any more easily than we would say, I am a body or I am a mind. Apparently, the soul, whatever it is just one more part or possession of that elusive I. So what's left to explore? How about the personality? Defining the personality is even more difficult than defining the mind. Or to be more accurate, reaching any agreement about what the personality is nearly impossible. It seems that every separate discipline and school of thought in psychology has its own theories about the personality. Comparing some of these theories can lead someone to believe that they are not even describing the same thing. And this can raise the question, does the personality really exist? I think a pretty good case could be made for the personality being an artificial construct. Nevertheless, whether real or imaginary, it often proves to be useful in describing ourselves. I'm an introvert. I'm left brain dominant. I'm a type B. I'm an INFJ. The possibilities are nearly endless. Personality also allows us to label our neuroses and claim them as our own. All this describing and labeling of ourselves certainly makes it seem possible that the personality is that thing which we truly identify with. And yet we still have the linguistic problem that we can refer to it possessively. I have a healthy personality. The therapist said my personality hasn't fully developed. I wish my personality were more like my brother's. As long as we can separate ourselves from it verbally and conceptually, it cannot be the source of our identity. At this point, maybe we should be asking, as some of you probably are, whether this linguistic argument has any substance to it. Obviously, I think it does. I don't believe it's just a quirk of English grammar. I believe it pretty accurately reflects our attitudes about our identity. We're able to say either I am or I have, and we use whichever matches our thinking. I can easily say, I have a dog. I'm not inclined to say, I am a dog, because that statement doesn't match my perception of reality. The same applies to the body, mind, soul, and personality. Linguistically, we have a choice, and we choose to say, I have, not I am. So we feel quite comfortable saying, my body, my mind, my soul, my personality, just like we say, my dog. None of these four aspects of our identity is satisfactory on its own. But what about in combination? If we take the body, the mind, the soul, and the personality and mash them all up together like different colored gobs of Play-Doh, can we take that resulting conglomerate mass and shape it into something that we can point to and say, yes, that's it, that's me? I would say, well, sort of, but not really. This combination of body, mind, soul, and personality is still incomplete. Our identity also has to include all of our past experiences and memories. Everything that has ever happened to us and everything we have ever done has contributed to who we are now. And the way we remember those events contributes even more. Our identity also has to include all of our relationships. Think about how you typically identify yourself to someone you've just met. After you give your name, which is just a label that conveys no information, you start telling how you are related to other people. I'm Johnny's mom. I'm Jane's brother. If you grew up around here, you will probably report the names of your relatives for about 4 generations back. We incorporate these relationships into our sense of who we are. We also identify with our roles in life, especially our occupations. That's why retirement is hard for many people. It deprives them of part of their identity. I'm sure there are other influences I haven't thought of, so let's just say that we'll include them too, whatever they are. So what happens if we take all of these additional elements and work them into our mix? Will that tell us who we are? Maybe. All these qualities, characteristics, and influences working together and interacting do create a unique individual. They distinguish each of us from everyone else. They create something that we can identify with, something we can comfortably refer to as I or me. The big problem is that it isn't real. I believe that elusive thing we're trying to describe and identify is the self, or what the Buddhists call the ego. Not to be confused with what Freud called the ego, or the common use of the word to mean a conceited attitude. In the Buddhist sense, the self or ego is the perception of being a separate, distinct individual. And that perception is an illusion. I first encountered this idea in reading about Buddhism many years ago. I have also found it in Hinduism and the writings of mystics from various religious traditions. To summarize the Buddhist point of view, I'll quote Albert Lowe, a Zen teacher and director of the Montreal Zen Center. Our true nature is our Buddha nature. Buddha means awakened and implies knowing. Because there is no other, because we do not basically know something, because knowing and being are not separate, there is nothing to know and nothing that knows. Because this is so, all is contained in knowing and nothing lies outside. Other Buddhist teachers use the term awareness instead of knowing. We are aware of our bodies, minds, souls, personalities, etc. But where does that awareness reside? We are aware of having an identity. This brings us back to the language problem. Not only can we say my identity, my ego, myself, our language has even turned myself into a single word. What is it that's aware of this identity? No matter how inclusive and comprehensive we try to make this personal identity, there will always be something that is aware of it, something that can observe it. What is the source of this awareness? We can say that we are self-aware, but what does that really mean? And what is it that's aware of our self-awareness? To further elaborate the Buddhist view, I want to quote from my favorite Buddhist teacher, Adyashanti. Generally, we think unconsciously that I am aware, that I am the one that is awareness, that awareness is something that belongs to me. We presume there is some entity called me who is aware. Yet when we start to investigate this meditatively, quietly, simply, we start to see that while there is awareness, we can't actually find the I or the me who is aware. We start to see that this is an assumption that the mind has been taught to make, that I am the one who is aware. When you turn inside and look for who's aware, what is aware, you can't find an it. There's just more awareness. There isn't a me or an I who is aware. In this way, we are subtracting our identity through this deep investigation. Through looking at what we are not, we are actually pulling our identity out of thought, feeling, persona, ego, body, mind. We're pulling our identity back out of the exterior elements of our experience into its essential nature. No sooner do we get back to awareness itself than we encounter the primary assumption that I am the one who is aware. So we investigate that assumption. As we investigate it through our experience, we discover time and time again that we cannot find out who it is that is aware. Where is that I that is aware?
It is at this precise moment, the moment when we realize that we cannot find an entity called me who owns or possesses awareness, that it starts to dawn on us that maybe we ourselves are awareness itself. Awareness isn't something we own. Awareness isn't something we possess. Awareness is actually what we are. I find these teachings compelling and persuasive because they're descriptions of what others have actually experienced, not just religious doctrine. And they feel true. Even though I've never experienced real awakening, I am aware of that awareness that isn't part of my identity as a separate self. I know it exists. I'll quote Adyashanti again, because I like him. This discovery I'm talking about is traditionally referred to as spiritual awakening, because one awakens from the dream of separation created by the egoic mind. We realize, often quite suddenly, that our sense of self, which has been formed and constructed out of our ideas, beliefs, and images, is not really who we are. It doesn't define us. It has no center. The ego may exist as a series of passing thoughts, beliefs, actions, and reactions, but in and of itself, it has no identity. Ultimately, all of the images we have about ourselves and the world turn out to be nothing but a resistance to things as they are. What we call ego is simply the mechanism our mind uses to resist life as it is. In that way, ego isn't a thing as much as it is a verb. It is the resistance to what is. It is the pushing away or pulling toward. This momentum, this grasping and rejecting, is what forms a sense of a self that is distinct or separate from the world around us. With the dawn of awakening, this outside world begins to collapse. Once we lose our sense of self, it's as if we have lost the whole world as we knew it. At that moment, whether that moment is just a glimpse or something more sustained, we suddenly realize with incredible clarity that what we truly are is in no way limited to the small sense of self that we thought we were. There is a shift in perception from seeing oneself as an isolated individual to seeing oneself, if we have a sense of self at all after this shift, as something much more universal. Everything and everyone and everywhere at the same time. These individual identities that we create are nothing more than ideas or collections of ideas. They're fictional characters in a fictional drama. You are the author and director of the drama. You are all of the characters, and you are the audience. I'll conclude with a quote from Eckhart Tolle. Many expressions that are in common usage, and sometimes the structure of language itself, reveal the fact that people don't know who they are. You say, he lost his life, or my life, as if life were something that you can possess or lose. The truth is, you don't have a life. You are life, the one consciousness that pervades the entire universe and takes temporary form to experience itself as a stone or a blade of grass, as an animal, a person, a star, or a galaxy. Can you sense deep within you that you already know that? Can you sense that you already are that? Thank you. I'm done.